Hey y'all, it's Jennifer DeGay with Remax Space Center, and I am so excited to have my next guest, who has also been a longtime friend and my personal insurance agent, Mark Rafail. Oh my gosh, I am going to butcher because I'm like nervous today for some reason.
Oh, you're good.
No, but Mark is the best and most knowledgeable person I've ever met about insurance. And it's you know, he's really going to ask a lot of. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, Mark. I hope you don't mind.
Of course.
But I kind of want to dive into it because we have a lot of topics to cover, and kind of, if you don't mind, I know that we've talked a little bit the other day, and of course we stayed in communication while we've gone through this new territory that we're in. And so tell us a little bit about how, the stay-at-home order has changed your business.
Well, Jen, thank you first and foremost for having me. Our business is considered essential, and I'm actually in our office in the Upper Kirby area across the street from HAR Central. And we have a staff of 6 that has their own office, and we've been socially distancing ourselves and just going to and from home and making the necessary trips. So we have been surviving and being innovative and actually more busy than ever.
That's awesome. So have y'all implemented any type of new technology?
Well, I wasn't a big Zoom guy before, and now people are wanting to hop on Zoom calls and screen share and do things that I was pretty traditional. I wanted to shake hands and meet you in person, right? So I'm now saving that hour drive time and talking to more people because of that.
Yes, and how do you like it?
I do like it. I feel like I'm getting more done in a short amount of time, and no greater time than now do a lot of the businesses and people that we insure want to talk about, what's covered, what's not covered. Is there credits on insurance premiums? And we were there for them to answer those questions.
Yes. I mean, I think, it's funny because everyone I've spoken to has said the same thing. They really, because most of us are people, we've got to be in front of people. I mean, we're just social animals. So, switching and going to a more of a virtual world has been a little challenging for most, but I have found that everyone has said the same thing, that now that I'm doing it, I actually like it. And, just same thing you just said about the drive, saving on the drive time. I know I personally, have had that same experience too. And, I think it just took me a little, I guess a jump in the deep end to get acclimated to it. But I finally did. And I think all of us were in those same shoes.
I do miss high-fiving, but we'll get back to that soon.
I know. It's really weird because I'm still, like a habit. You want to shake somebody's hand, or, I'm a hugger too, because, I'm a Texan. And, and like you said, high five. And I'm like, oh, wait, I don't want to offend anyone. So it's interesting to see how that's going to be handled. It looks like,
I think I lost you.
Yeah, we lost you. Where'd you go? Don't be pulling magic tricks.
Sorry.
So, with the insurance, I guess, you actually represent, many business owners all over Houston, and you also represent or are the insurance of choice for a lot of local Pearland business owners, as well as, Clear Lake, Friendswood, League City, Greater Houston area. You're kind of all over the place. What has everyone been calling you and kind of panicking a little bit about their business? I know that there's, something a lot of people are talking about is the business interruption coverage or something, right?
Sure. Yeah. So just let me give you my 1-minute background. So Mark Rafail, Rafail Insurance Agency, in the insurance industry for 12 years, and got laid off in 2008 and took a loan out and started our own office with my wife in 2009, and started talking to businesses, going business to business and going to real estate office to real estate office. And naturally we started gaining clients that way. So now we insure over 200 businesses, and we service over 4,000 insurance policies, and that's personal insurance policies. And yes, questions about business interruption. What is it? How does it pay out? I see it on my policy. So business interruption will reimburse lost revenues after a covered claim. That's kind of the gray area. So if there's no claim to your business, like the typical scenario, kitchen fire in the restaurant, hurricane hits, and you got to rebuild and you're out for 3-4 months or a year, well, they're going to divide your actual lost revenues and start to reimburse. Well, there is an exclusion for acts of war and viruses that, unless it's a virus from like salmonella in the restaurant. So there's been a lot of disappointment, I would say, from consumers. But on the insurance end, there's not an insurance carrier in America that really is built to reimburse lost revenues for everybody without a claim. So this is kind of where maybe the government steps in, knowing that all the contracts say that there's an exclusion for floods, for viruses, and wars, typically. So if the government steps in and says, we're going to help you insurance companies if you change your contract, maybe that happens. But as of right now, it seems like the SBA loans are what's making a lot of these restaurants survive, and businesses that in general. So yes, without physical damage to a business, it's really hard to pick up that coverage.
I know that's, it seems like it's been all over, talking about that. And, as far as on the news and the paper, all over, every internet site or every email I have received, I have talked about, the business loans. And I guess, hopefully with the changes that are coming in the future. So can you maybe talk about what's being done by the insurance, or I guess, is it the Department of Insurance, or that's trying to make changes?
Well, right now it's an uphill battle. So right now, contracts, policies as they read, say there's an exclusion for viruses on a lot of them. However, we're not discouraging people to call their carrier and talk to a claims adjuster, and every scenario might be different. But as of right now, I have found scenarios of coverage unless there's property damage. As of right now, it's a sore subject.
Right.
But I do want you to know that Farmers Insurance is actually J.D. Power and Associates, one of the top small business insurance carriers, and we do represent other carriers. But Farmers restaurant policies received a 20% discount for the last couple of months. They took their wait staff, automatically didn't rate them as delivery drivers, but gave them access to be delivery drivers without increasing rates so they can survive. So I felt like when the call came, we tried to help where we can. And some of those restaurants, at least could stay afloat a little bit with getting their servers out there delivering, which is not typical for them.
Right. I know there's been a lot of, changes within the restaurants. I have seen firsthand how they have kind of shifted. So, but that's great that you've been able to offer that, so they can become a little bit more creative and at least, generating some sort of stream of income. And, because but I know, as far as that goes, it's nowhere near to what they make on their average, daily sales. So it's been, a struggle, and I hate to see that, but now hopefully, that they're opening up, and from what I understand, several restaurants are taking, reservations and really just trying to keep the occupancy down. And, they put in preemptive measures to really, keep everyone, I guess, still at a distance. It's just been a really interesting, time. I mean, that none of us have ever experienced. And I know I have had so many, calls from past clients. And one of the things that has, been a common question amongst, past clients, especially those that, are small business owners and, or maybe have lost their job or been furloughed. And they have been asking me, what do I do about my homeowners insurance policy, it's coming due, or their flood, or, even their windstorm. What do I do, Jen? Because, what can I do to lower it without, putting myself in a position, of losing it?
Absolutely. So luckily, a lot of the big name carriers realize people aren't driving as much. So I know Farmers, State Farm, a lot of them stepped up. Farmers discounted personal auto by 25%, and they're doing it 15% next month and hoping things pick back up. But, I'm a firm believer that insurance should cover the big stuff. And if you were to increase your deductibles, it's not going to ruin your life. But if you remove flood insurance, if you don't have an umbrella, the serious stuff, meaning you get in an accident, somebody passes away, you pass away, your house gets flooded, and it's your biggest asset. Life, flood, and umbrella are three things that you don't have to get, but they're very inexpensive, and it pays out a lot. And you don't want to put people in a financial burden where they're taking out 2 mortgages. And that's what happens whenever they don't have flood, or God forbid, you hit a bike rider and a lawyer, the Texas Hammer, sues. You don't want your insurance stopping at $50,000. You want to have at least $250,000 liability so you can get an umbrella policy. And what is umbrella? It's like your lawyer. It gives you additional $1 million or more in liability in case the accident's your fault or your house fire ruins the neighbor's house and you're on the hook. So it looks over all your insurance. And an average umbrella, Jen, costs about anywhere from $30 to $50 a month. For $1 million. That's a lot cheaper than having to come out of pocket. And flooding, the biggest misconception is, I'm not in a flood zone, I don't need it. Technically, the whole Texas coast is a flood zone, and they just coin it low risk and high risk. And Jen, after Harvey, there was so many real estate agents and lenders and insurance agents that were sued because they found a text message that said, "Oh, you're not in a flood zone." Well,
Yeah.
the reality is 80% of the people that flood are in this low risk zone. So really, there's not a fine line, and the government hasn't come in to readjust it in years. So that's the biggest misconception of flood insurance. And then the biggest misconception of auto insurance is I got full coverage. Okay,
Right,
you got
right.
deductibles if you get in an accident, but a lot of people are driving around with 30,000 in life. And if you've ever been to the hospital, that can go in a day. So that's the other misconception I try to put out there. And then life insurance. It's not as black and white as people think. Most people just think death benefit, which it could be that. It could be strictly insurance, but the government will allow you to contribute to an investment grade life policy and not get taxed. And if nothing happens, you can withdraw the money. But if something happens, your beneficiary gets the money that you've put in plus the life insurance. Think of that like owning a house. You pay the policy for a couple of years, then you're done, and you can live off the cash, and you got insurance, for the rest of your life. On the other hand, you can get something low cost that can cover your mortgage, and it expires. And think of it like renting. It's like a 20-year lease. It's good for 20 years, then it goes away. But in this day of age, when I'm seeing people with responsibilities, families, and they say, I've got coverage maybe through work, they don't realize work benefits are not owned by them. So if you get diagnosed with something, you can't get insurance. And when you leave that company, it goes away and you're older. So the other misconception is work benefits are mine. So I always say, GoFundMe and barbecues online is not the last impression you want your family to have, right? So
Right.
take the responsibility of at least covering your debts and replacing a few years' income if people are dependent on you. But we're really passionate about at least telling people. So even if they don't go with us, they can take our advice to whoever they work with, because I don't want to be the bad guy and somebody say, you didn't tell me. So right now, I know people are trying to save, but if you cut coverage where it's going to cost you out of pocket, then that could ruin your life. But if you increase your deductible, you cover stuff that's under 5,000-10,000. Yes, that's very bad day, bad month, but it's not going to ruin your life like a couple $100,000 or a couple million if something happens. So on the business end, we talk the same lingo. There's people are getting hacked left and right, Jen.
Yeah.
Cyber liability cover if that college kid genius hacks into your system. Now they've got data, and now you're on the hook. And I use Target as an example. If Target can get hacked,
Well,
little
that
old us could probably
happened,
get hacked too.
what last year and I think the summer before that they were breached. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it ruined their name for a while, and people didn't want to shop there or online. They had to change their ownership, Jen, to get people's trust back. So I always say if it could happen to Target, it could happen to any business. So most of pretty much every business that we insure has business interruption, has cyber liability, and there's something out there, Jen, these days. It's called employee practices liability. With people getting furloughed,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there that are they're mad, so they will sue their employer. So if they get sued for discrimination of any sort, it's going to be covered now. Where if they get sued, you've got coverage for it. And a lot of times, just having the coverage means you're defended and you don't call the lawyer and pay out of pocket. So
Right.
defense costs is very important if you have the coverage, which we always suggest.
Isn't that covered under the E&O, which, by the way, if for those of you that are watching, that's errors and omissions. So most businesses will carry an errors and omissions policy in addition to their business, policy.
Sure, and let me tell you the difference. There's two types of liability out there, just so you know. General liability and professional liability, which professional liability covers, it's under the umbrella of errors and omissions and malpractice. I'll tell you the difference.
Okay.
General liability, somebody gets hurt, you damage a third party's property. That's physical damage, somebody gets hurt. Professional liability, like errors and omissions for you and I, is insurance on our workmanship. So I mess up on a contract, nobody got hurt. So if I mess up on an insurance policy, that's going to be errors and omissions insurance. Or if a doctor messes up on a patient, medical malpractice. It's all under the professional liability umbrella, but a lot of people don't know that, and they might have one and not the other. In reality, if you're a business, you need to have both. It covers the gray area.
Right. It's I think, a lot of times I find that my clients, when they're especially, buying a home and, looking or trying to get a couple of quotes from insurance agents, they're overwhelmed, because most people have a hard time reading the, contract, in the coverages and, every, between the dwelling and, if the cost to build it, all of these things. I mean, a lot of people seem to get overwhelmed very easily, and it causes anxiety. And, one thing that I've always tried to encourage them is, you really want to speak to someone who's, knowledgeable, but is also willing to take the time to educate you on the policy and teach you, how to compare, coverages, because I know, because you've taught me, are you comparing apples to apples? In most cases, that's not the case. But you actually take the time to teach people and make it very easy, and you put things in layman's terms so the average person, is understanding. So would you maybe kind of explain? I mean, I know you, and and I know you care about people, but I guess maybe if you can explain why you do that too.
Yes, ma'am. And the reality is, an insurance policy is 80 pages for a reason. There's exclusions, there's different things. So every insurance company, Jen, has their own estimate to what it costs to rebuild a structure based on a zip code. Now, so when you insure a building, whether it's business or your home, you're insuring for the reconstruction with a custom builder if it burns to the ground today. And it's very hard for people to grasp that, because we're not insuring the land, and we're not insuring for what you bought it for or what it's appraised for. All those
Right.
numbers could be different. So I'll give you an example. A little 900 square foot house in the Heights sitting in a corner lot sells for $1 million, but the structure, could be rebuilt at $150 a square foot. and so, and vice versa. You can have that 3,000 square foot house deep in the burbs and get a great deal on it, but it's not the home builder coming in at bulk building if something happens. It's a custom. So a lot of times they're like, well, my house higher than what I'm paying for. It's because you want to insure for reconstruction,
Right.
not what you bought it for.
Right.
And on top of that, I think a lot of people don't know that your home policy, when you add it all up, I mean, it could pay out $500,000, $1 million. Because if, let's say you have a $300,000 house, on top of that, they're going to automatically assume 150 grand for everything you own inside. If you have jewelry or high value things, antiques, tell your agent an appraisal will cover it. But traditional things you can go to Macy's and buy, it's going to be covered without asking 21 questions with a reputable company. The other thing is home burns to the ground and you start adding it up. That could be, 60 grand to rent a place comparable for a year, 150 for your things inside, 300 for the house. And so I think it's important to also know that insurance companies are different in that there's some that are backed by the government that have funds and not. So if they're cheaper and they're not backed by the government and a hurricane comes and they belly up, they don't have enough money, you could be out of luck. There's no obligation for the government to step in and make sure everybody gets rebuilt after a hurricane. But with your name brand carriers that's government backed, if by chance Pearland got wiped out and funds were getting depleted, the government has to step in and make sure claims get paid. That's a good fuzzy feeling, I think, to know, versus the other way. People might not know that their company is not government backed.
Right. Right. There's so much to it, and I can easily see how, someone could be overwhelmed. And, one of the other things that people seem to question me about all the time is, well, when they ask me, is this in a flood zone? I can very easily now go onto HAR and go to the flood maps and just kind of show them and explain to them, look, there's no guarantees in life. Sometimes, there's been areas that have flooded that were never expected to flood, because you really do have to think about the growth that we've had all across, our area. And I could say state,
Look
right?
at 288.
Yeah, it's become more of a concrete jungle, and you have to kind of look at that. But when I look at the zones, and I say, listen, your insurance agent's going to pull up the zone, but there's been some times where homes have maybe lied in a zone that is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, so
but they may not need it because of the elevation. So maybe explain that.
Sure. So I'll give you an example. I live in the Heights. My townhouse is built up, a couple feet, and my cost of flood insurance is the same as somebody that's in a low risk area because my house is built up. But if it was on the ground, you might see rates 4 times higher because you're in a high risk zone and you're on ground level. So it certainly helps being elevated, but it doesn't mean you should not get insurance, because even though my townhouse is built up, I had water up to the door. Thankfully, it didn't get in, got in the garage. And just FYI, everybody, a garage is not considered part of the structure on FEMA's flood policy, and they're not going to cover it. Now, they may cover, refrigerator, washer, dryer, but other personal items, FEMA's policy, Jen, hasn't been really updated since the 80s. So it's not meant to be as robust as your home insurance. It's a meat and potatoes policy. Gut my house or rebuild the house and give me some money for my contents. But hotel expenses, things like that, unfortunately, that's not covered. But heck, it will pay up to $350,000, worst case, when you add up the house and things inside. For an average of $516 a year, the government's actually subsidizing that cost, and it's very low when you compare it to your home and windstorm policy. So it is the biggest exclusion on every policy. But when somebody's saying you don't have to get it, naturally people are going to say, okay. But it takes your insurance agent, I think, to be really passionate about it. Because to me, it's kind of like that automobile full coverage thing. You don't have full coverage on your house if you're excluding a flood or windstorm, or you're not insuring at replacement value. So yeah, we're really passionate about it because I can't sleep at night if somebody has to pay a couple $100,000 or even tens of thousands. Like,
yeah, and
we're
when
gonna
it's
have bad reviews everywhere.
yeah, and when it's not required, it's the cost is minimal. And I know, and of course during Harvey, it was so stressful. It's so important to have it, at least for peace of mind, because I know a lot of people who didn't have, flood insurance, they were panicking, and unfortunately, some of them did flood, and that was just a really heartbreaking thing. But Mark, hey, we have a couple of people on here. Hey, Andrea. And my dad is my most loyal fan, and then of course Sean. But Andrea is actually asking a question. It says, "What is your suggestion on small business insurance?" So what I think she means, because she actually owns a small business where she's kind of a one-man show, but I mean she does amazing work. She creates, cups, and she's done a lot of my own marketing pieces, and she's in some of the doctor's offices here locally. So she's not a huge company, but definitely a small business owner. So
absolutely. Hi, Miss Ross. I'm happy to help. And to me, I think a lot of consultants that might not have brick and mortar are thinking it's, my land requiring me because I don't office out of a retail area, and I just never had to get business insurance. Well, the reality is, if you make income from that business, or especially if you're making a living from it, well, anybody could point the finger and say they're not happy with your work and sue you. Now, and what good lawyers do, Jen, is like your friend does marketing materials, you said?
Yes.
So let's say, for example, a company sues her for copyright infringement, and she gets sued, and maybe it's not even true. Well, now she's got to call a lawyer and defend herself. So to me, every business should have insurance to cover the needs of what they're doing, especially if they make a living from it, because one lawsuit could put you out, right? So to me, protecting your income on the business side, the personal side, with the right insurance is way cheaper than the latter.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so do you find that the business coverages for small individual companies like Andrea and many other business owners is a little bit less expensive than compared to like a Gringo's or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're not insuring property, right, that automatically reduces rates. But the other thing is your revenues has a lot to do with it. I'll give you an example. If Andrea is selling $100,000 worth of marketing services a year, then the insurance is going to rate on that much traffic versus there could be companies doing millions of dollars, right? So your revenues, your services, and if you have employees, guess what? Texas is the only state that doesn't require workers' comp. And that's another sore subject for me, because if you have an employee and God forbid they pass away running an errand or to a client, in Texas, a judge makes the call. And I've had body shops I've seen in the paper go out of business because somebody in the shop cut their leg and they got settled $3 million because he lost a foot. So
I've
really
heard that a
put
few
a price
times.
on it. So if you have employees, definitely workers' comp. And then, Jen, the other thing is, a lot of times people say, oh, they're 1099. I pay them 1099. They're not my employee. Well, if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it's a duck. So them like an employee, like, hey, I need you here at 10. I need this by. They're following your orders and they work for you, and they're not working for other people, then technically they're an employee and you need to cover them under workers' comp. Which is inexpensive too, unless you're,
Yeah. And so And thank you so much, Andrea. I love that you asked that question. And you know what? I love you too. She's really amazing. And then, oh, and Megan Pence, she says hi. So, hey, Megan. You know, let us know if y'all have any questions. By the way, if you have questions, you are going to be entered into a drawing. And Mark has Farmer's hand sanitizer, which is hot commodity these days. And then some Egyptian art. One of the things that I want to share with y'all, Mark is so active. You know, he's been involved with HAR, and that's originally how I met, you know, Mark. And, you know, we've been fast friends since. But he also is the founder of the Egyptian Festival. So, you know, Mark, I have always just admired your tenacity to get out there and do things. You've done, you know, projects like Soaring Kids. I mean, explain to us too, how did you get involved, or what prompted the Egyptian Festival, and how did you make it the success that it is today?
Well, it's funny you say that. It was definitely an idea, and I was able to pull it off with some, you know, a lot of help for 2 years. So I'm first generation Egyptian, and our church is Egyptian Orthodox. And we used to have a festival at our church until about 20 years ago. They stopped doing it. But the Greek Orthodox, our friends, they can have continued on for 50 plus years.
Oh, wow.
So I asked our church, would you mind if I tried to ask around and pick it back up? And this was in 2015. And they said, Mark, we don't want anything to do with it as far as the church, but if you want to do it independently, go for it. So I started calling parks, and nobody called me back. I guess maybe the camel. Is a camel allowed? Nobody called me back. But then I got fed up, and I walked into Discovery Green, and I was like, how much does this place cost? And the whole thing is like probably $75,000 just for the land.
Wow.
But they said, Mark, you can get a small little corner over there for $10,000. But then, you know, you got to get electrical and all this. So I thought, you know, well, what do you need down? They said 10%. Said, here's my credit card. I got the smallest patch of land, and set a date for a year from that day. And then I just put my head down, created a website, said I'll be the main sponsor, but I'm going to ask people in the community if they want to support. And then any funds raised, we would donate back to nonprofits like Soaring Kids that my friends started for special needs kids to play sports. That's soaringkidswithaz.org. And then Rania Menkarios is the CEO of Crime Stoppers, and she's Egyptian. So I had a conversation with her, and she loved it. So they got behind us and then started cross-marketing. And all of a sudden, I put it on Facebook, and 10,000 people were interested. I had to call Discovery Green and say, I need more land. Had no idea what I was doing. And then the first year, we had over 5,000 people attend in 2016. And the Egyptian consulate said, who are you? You know, and then they liked the idea, and they flew in dancers from Egypt. They helped me raffle off tickets from Egypt Airlines that year. And they flew in an Egyptologist, belly dancers, the whole nine. And then I found camels from Florida. So
That's just
after
insane.
that first, yeah, so I had no idea what I was doing, bit off more than I can chew. And then the second year, made it an actual nonprofit organization, because we were able to donate back probably close to $8,000. And
wow,
the second year I said, guys, I need help. And the second year, you know, same story. I was out there, you know, promoting, but Hurricane Harvey happened.
yeah,
We doubled our expenses because we had waits for food, and it was just the perfect storm where the Astros had the World Series that day. So imagine parking.
yeah,
So the second year we had a better setup, but the attendance was probably half. And we
right,
ended up being in the red, and nobody would have known that other than me, because I was the guy that was in charge, right? But
right.
I made a tough decision to say, hey, I've got to step down from doing this. And everybody in the Egyptian community really respected that, even the consulate. So it was actually more of an experience that I thought was an epic failure, because, you know, we're probably
No,
20 grand in the red.
yeah,
But I learned from it. and I made a lot of connections, and I made connections in Egypt importing Egyptian papyrus art. And Andrea, I'll make sure that we send you some papyrus. Sounds like she said she had a trip get canceled in Egypt. But I imported the real papyrus, and now we give it to all of our clients, and it's kind of been our staple.
That is so awesome. And I love, that she's ridden a camel. I can't say that I've ever ridden a camel at an Egyptian festival or anything, but I have at the Renaissance Festival. So, but, but I am really proud of you. But I think what one thing that I get, or the one thing that I've learned from you is I think sometimes we've all maybe taken on a project and, realized that it was something, a little bit more than we anticipated. But knowing your limits and knowing it's okay, to back off, because I think, we're all very hard on ourselves, right? But you got out there and you did it, and to grow it to the magnitude that you did was extremely impressive. And one thing that I really want everyone out there to understand is, you really truly give back. And, that's important. So, when you're doing business, and the whole reason why we're doing the show is to support small business owners to get brand awareness and get the exposure. But, it's really great when you have someone who is a small business owner who is actually contributing to the communities and supporting other small business owners. So it's more of a domino effect. So I applaud you for all of that. It's so important.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I had a ton of help, and on the restaurant end, Jen, every restaurant that's near and dear to me, first thing we did was we called them and said, give us a couple $100 in gift cards. We're gonna give them to clients. This is our way to say we're here, and we're a couple $1,000s in, but it's all for a good cause. And here's the other thing: we wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for people like you and the businesses that we insure. So you've got to give back in order to receive, right? So that's always been the mantra. And, speaking of kind of falling on your face, I don't know if I told you this, but I got recruited into insurance in 2007 and worked under an agent. And that first year I was 15 grand in credit card debt because I couldn't sell a thing and wasn't trained. And I thought, this is an awful industry. Just like you, we got, you're just straight commission, right? So I got into oil and gas in 2008 and got laid off in 2009, and had my license with Farmers, called them, and they gave me a loan. And I said, if you're dumb enough to give me the money, I will hit the streets now that I've got a little bit of experience. And the second time around was completely different because it was, I guess, my name on the door, right?
Right.
And we got Farmers Rookie of the Year the first year, doing a lot of small stuff. People that are renting in an office building, renting an apartment inside the Loop. And we treated everybody like they were $1 million client. And lo and behold, we grew with them and planted a bunch of seeds, and went from me and my wife, Sylvia, who was working for free. She was, to now we have a staff of 6 and over 100 years combined experience with the women that we have in our office. So it's funny the way things work, because naturally when you fail, in the past, you get down about it. Now it's like, what am I going to learn from it? And that's been my approach, especially after the Egyptian festival.
Right. And, now that you've talked about that too, because, that you were at the, you came in during the mortgage recession, because that was in 2008, 2009. And they, always say, I was just listening to Ed Milet. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I love listening to him, but, he's a very motivating, interviewer, because he brings in the top guests, right? But you can listen to any of these motivational speakers, and they always say the same thing, and it's proof in history that many successful businesses started in a recession. And there's a lot to be said from that. And I can tell you, I've seen and met people who have started businesses now during this time. So it's really amazing, and really probably a good time that we are talking about, small businesses. And, now that because there's been needs that have had to been filled, these businesses have started, and probably haven't even had a chance to really think on their feet and like, oh, wow, I need to really, get business insurance because now, I've got this idea that just took off and maybe they weren't expecting that, So what would be the very first, thing that they do? And what if it's somebody that maybe doesn't have a whole lot of money right now, but they've got this great business that's just really taking off?
Yeah, great feedback. Great, and I agree. I'm looking at this like a technology revolution. Now we're forced to drop what we're doing and pivot and really not taking the time to think is actually a good thing, because when you overthink, people end up not doing anything.
Right.
So my suggestion is, if you're starting a business and you're accepting money, right? Then anybody could sue you for that product, or you can get dragged in to a third party, even though you weren't necessarily involved, because the lawyer said, oh, you sold this to this person, that person sold it to that person. We're going to drag everybody in. So my recommendation is talk to your agent, and you can get business insurance policies for $100 a month. But heck, that's a whole lot easier than risking not having the business. And the good news is, as your business grows, your agent should do every year, because your premiums are based on what your sales are. So I've had clients start with, 40 grand in sales the first year. Now they're $1 million, right?
Right.
So you got to have faith in yourself to make all those investments, to do it by the book, in my opinion.
Right. No, I agree. And one of the other things that, you kind of just mentioned a little bit about, but I want to touch base because I don't think people understand the importance of it, is renter's insurance. I, help a lot of people, and I know a lot of people rent for a lot of reasons, but it's so important to have renter's insurance, and it's not expensive. So, maybe can you touch on that a little bit?
Yes. The first 2-3 years in business, I was renting. So it was natural for me to be in my apartment complex talking to the leasing office saying, hey, when people move, I'd love to talk to them. Well, I would take the time to walk them through a $25 a month renter's policy. And the reality is, if you lost everything, what are you going to do? So a renter's policy is going to cover your personal items. It would cover your hotel expenses if something happened. And if you're liable, guess what? If you're the one that caused that kitchen fire and you're the landlord of a house, you're technically liable to rebuild that house. So renter's insurance come with $500,000 in liability. Something serious happens. And the premiums are really low. And for the landlord, heck, it's another layer of protection. Now, one thing I want you and everybody to know, a lot of renters didn't know that they get flood insurance just on their contents. Same goes for businesses that are renting in a strip center. So content only flood insurance. And, I got people, or you got people moving from up north down here, and they're like, flood, what do you mean? So it's our job and duty to tell them, hey, our weather here is a little bit different, so renter's insurance, definitely the way to go.
Right, absolutely. And like you said, not just for renting, apartments or homes, but also businesses who are leasing spaces. And
Yeah.
it's going to lead to my next question, because I know this has always been a hot topic, not just for realtors, but, for any business owner, is, a lot of people are really hesitant on, turning their vehicles into marketing pieces, because they're worried that someone might target them out specifically, thinking that because they're an owner of a business, they must, be millionaires, and really not understanding the overhead we have, all that stuff. What is your take on that?
Sure. So if you are branding a vehicle with a company name, and that company name is incorporated or a DBA, if that company is sued after an auto accident, your typical personal auto policy is going to say, we had nothing to do with this business. We're just insuring you for your day-to-day driving. So if you do have a business, then you need to have a commercial auto policy to pick up if the business is sued after, God forbid, you hit somebody on the road. So good question. If you're not incorporated, just make sure you have a high limits on your personal auto at all times. The recommendation is have at least 250,000 on your auto policy so you can qualify for $1 million umbrella. And that gives you a total of 1.25 in coverage. And reality is, imagine, Jen, you got in an accident where somebody hit you and you couldn't work again. You're paralyzed, or God forbid you passed away. What would your family do to that party that hit you? They would talk to a lawyer and sue, right?
Right.
So, and an average cost of $1 million umbrella we talked about is very low. So it's just my recommendation. But if you have an LLC or a corporation and there's no insurance on it, just know that if a lawyer decides to drag in that name, there's no defense cost there. So talk to your agent about commercial insurance if you have a business entity. Now, if you're a real estate agent and you're doing business under your name, well, your personal insurance is going to cover that, and your broker is going to cover you for the errors and omissions. And if they drag in your brokerage and you, their business insurance is going to cover you.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, good to know. Thank you. Because I know, again, that's a lot, big hot topic. Is there any other advice that, you really want to get, or maybe put the message across out there for anyone listening?
Well, I think it's just really important to have a good relationship with your insurance agent, and know how to cover the big stuff. So at the end of this, I'll comment with our contact info. But reality is, your income. What that means personally, if a serious act, and on the business if something happens. So I take it seriously, and I make the recommendations as if it's my family, because I just can't sleep good at night. And same with you in your profession, right? You're not going to steer somebody wrong.
No, absolutely not. Because, I care, and I do take, of course, I have a tendency of taking other people's problems on as if they're my own, because I tend to care too much. That's not necessarily a good thing, but I think it makes me a good person in the sense that I really do try to give the best advice possible. It's hard to find good people to trust, and, people that care. I'm drawn to them. And I think that's, you and I met, several years ago. Mm-hmm. I think what 10, 11 years ago. It's been a while. And, I knew, like, I can, just, your gut tells you, right? Like when people are good, trustworthy, and you're like, hey, wait, there's something about the person I like. And you were definitely one of those. Yeah. And, and y'all, I mean, this is so crazy that, Mark, he sent me some videos, because we tried to we were actually way ahead of our time. I think, several years ago, when we did our videos together, we actually collaborated on some videos about, well, I loved it because it was like, know before you go, right? We had James on there, who is James Ward. He is one of our friends and mortgage specialist. So he, talked about, knowing what you get approved for, before we get out there and looking. So we talked about that. Then we also talked about, insurance. So, and that was, I forget how many years ago, but
it was probably about 8.
Okay. Yeah. And so he sent me these videos, and I'm laughing because I'm like, wow, first of all, it's amazing how much younger we look. Not really changed so much. I think my hairstyle's changed, but, but it was a lot of fun. But here we are again, we're out there, we're collaborating together, supporting small businesses. And, it's just so surreal with this everything going on. What is the one thing that you feel that your clients right now, whether it's with their personal protection, on their personal properties or auto, or if it's a business, what is their biggest concern right now, as far as any of the insurance coverages?
Sure. Well, I would say consumer, and there's a lot of our clients that they're not allowed to work. Example, I have a client that does audio and video for the hotels when they have conferences. Well, that's
Right.
not going to happen for a while. So his business just took
Yeah.
a shot. So depending on what business you're in, now on the flip side, the grocery stores and things like that have been, blessed and fortunate. And then, but what they're doing that I really appreciate is they were, taking those people that were wait staff at restaurants saying, hey, we'll take you here, right? So in a time like this, I think people are just, if they have faith, they know that this is going to pass and everything happens for a reason. And we're going to look back in 10, 15 years and be like, remember 2020. But the people that have no faith, it's going to be really tough because you're going to be worried all the time. And you're going to be so worried that you're going to have blinders and you're not going to know what to do next. But what I've found is people are saying, no, I got to figure out what I got to do. And people that were wait staff is starting a business all of a sudden, right? Out of
Right.
necessity. So like you, I think it's important that you communicate well. It's very simple. Do you answer the call? Do you return the call? Do you communicate? When a question comes your way via email, I know it's 101, but you and I know that that's kind of a lost art, customer service. And for us, we're anything tangible, so our service has got to be there, right? So I think just being there for people and shooting them straight and not letting them question, are they giving me straight shot answers? Really helps in a time like this.
I think that's one of the things that I've enjoyed about, doing the, online meetings, whether it's, Zoom or, if you're FaceTiming or whatever the Google meetings or whatever one you're using. I think that's been great because you are connecting with people. So it's kind of bringing that back a little bit, just in a very different way. I'm going to add this because a very smart person that we both know said to me a year ago, he said, wait till next year with 2020. It's going to be the year of clear vision. 2020 vision. And I didn't really think about how true that was until yesterday when I thought, wow, he was so right because of the fact that people are opening up their eyes. They're looking at their family and realize how they put work first. And they're now spending more time with children and their wives or husbands and really focusing on relationships. And that's been amazing. And they've also been able to find an outlet or an activity or hobby that they forgot they enjoyed and they started doing it. So it was almost a reminder of the important things first. Because we are not here to work. We work to live, and we should enjoy life. And I think that's been a good a message that we have heard loud and clear. But not to mention, with the environment, cleanup and all these other bonuses. There's always a silver lining, but I think it's very true that it has been a year of 2020 vision. Our eyes have been opened.
Yes, 100% agree. And I kind of say this every time I drive by my neighborhood. It's so 80s. People are outside riding their bikes and walking their dog. And I'm like, where has this been? And that, I think, is the good that's coming out of this. And I think you have to look at every situation that way in order to be positive. And yeah, you're right. For me, it's been a time of reflection and doing the things that I've always intended to do, and then realizing that my priorities sometimes may have not been the best. And so, and kudos to you, Jen. And on a drop of a dime, you've become a production company, and you've done it flawlessly. And I've had other people tell me, like, how long has she been doing this? I'm like, she just started this, and been passionate about it. And now you got people knocking on your door saying, hey, that they're going to want to be talking with you. So kudos to you, and thanks for trying to help people and support people. It's very commendable. And when we did meet, you were the president of HAR's Young Professionals, which was a big feat to take. And I think it just helped your leadership skills, and you kept growing from it. So you jumped in. So
Yeah.
kudos.
Sometimes you have to do that. And I love that. And thank you very much for the compliments. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I literally learned how to operate this 45 minutes before I went live on my first show. And, you know, I was able to get that fear out because not focused on it because I was so focused on helping other people, because that's been my drive. And
yeah,
you know, that sometimes you just, you know, my passion is helping people. That's why I was able to come up with my tagline, that my passion is helping people and your success is my mission, because that's just who I am. And, you know, it's been interesting because I really certainly was not expecting the response that I've received. And I may cry a little bit because I really wasn't. And just because even other realtors in other areas from LA, from, you know, New York to, you know, little bitty town in Arkansas, agents have been reaching out to me wanting to know how to do this so they can do it in their area. And of course I share it. And I've, you know, even in our area, I'm noticing other agents are doing it, but also, you know, other within the real estate industries, you know, people are reaching out to want to interview me, which has been like crazy. And it's been fun, but my purpose really, you know, is not for me. It's because I really want to help these business owners, because they're the heartbeat of any community. We've got to keep them going. And, you know, this, you know, we're a community, we're a family, we're in this together. We're going to grow together. We're going to succeed together. But, you know, the part of it is everyone's got to take part, right? You know, and so, you know, you know, of course, we're not wanting to spend a whole lot of money, go and eat out, but I'm certainly going to support my local businesses and, you know, and do what I can. And, you know, there's so many other industries too that are, you know, in the business, and like you offering insurance. You know, I always tell everybody, hey, if you need something, call your insurance agent or your realtor, because we know everybody.
Yeah.
You know, if we don't know the answer, we'll find it, right, Mark? I mean, we're good at that. You've been really great at, you know, growing your business. I've admired, you know, how much you've grown your business. You know, have never, you know what, there's no real success without failure. So we've all had our failures. And that's okay. You know, because I think if you don't admit that you've had failures, then really you probably don't have real success. You know,
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So, you know, keep it up, you know, keep me posted. You know, Mark has some great new businesses that he's insuring, and he's been, you know, sharing them with me. I cannot wait to try some of these new restaurants. Wow. And, you know, I don't know if we can even say, but you know, some of their stories.
Yeah, I can give a shout out.
Fascinating. Yeah, give a shout out to some of them.
So Urban Eats off of Washington Avenue has been near and dear to me. Eric and Levi are partners that quit their corporate job and went all in, and they were on Channel 2 News, and it's been heartfelt from the community and people trying to support them. I insure, you know, the SHOUTOUT franchise in Pearland next to you. I talked about the blind goat that is in Bravery Hall that we insure. A friend from high school, John Sue, married Christine Ha, that was on the Food Network, and she had won one of the Iron Chefs, and she's blind, hence the name The Blind Goat.
That is, I love that story.
They just finished their first year in business, and you know, you're not taught this situation, right? So they're improvising and pivoting as well. But we insure about 200 businesses in Houston, and we try to support where we can. We love them, and we love all of our personal clients, like you. Of course, you've been supporting me for 10 years.
That's right. That's right. And you know, and right now, one of the businesses that you have here in Pearland, they've really been, you know, focusing in getting food out too. Was it Enchilada? What is it? Enchilada, right?
SHOUTOUT.
What Enchilada? Sorry, SHOUTOUT here in Pearland, which is right by HEB, right? Because it's right by HEB.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. And I know that
there's a gift card, by the way.
I haven't used it yet. I need to, but thank you very much. But I know they're very nice people. People love going there. I've talked to several people in the community. So yeah, they have a great business.
Waiting there for you. Rodney and then Marine, David, husband, wife team that has that location. And as soon as that happened, I said, I'm going to get a handful of gift cards for my Pearland clients and leave it at the front desk. So when they come, lunch is on me. And it was cool because this, as soon as I found out that the city shut them down, we started calling around to let them know. And so, yeah, there's one waiting with your name on there, a gift card whenever you go by. Absolutely.
Appreciate that. Yes. Oh, and we have one last question before we go. Let's see. Sean is asking, is there any changes to the home or auto coming down the pipeline that we need to be aware of?
Sure. So from an auto perspective, Mr. Sellers, a lot of carriers are realizing that people are not on the road as much, which translates to hopefully less accidents. So if this continues on, then you might see auto insurance companies adjusting their rates. I know Farmers, Allstate, a lot of them have at least stepped up for a month or two, or until the unknown, right? Because there's no telling if it's going to be a couple of months. So they did the conservative thing. But on the home end, Jen, really nothing has changed from an exposure that a hurricane can still happen, a fire can still happen. So property insurance, the industry, it's going to be different from each carrier, whether one has more money than the other. And I'll tell you, the one that has more money usually means a better claims experience. So you do kind of get what you pay for. So I would say on the auto front, there could be some changes coming, hopefully for the best. On the home front, I wouldn't expect too many changes, especially if Mother Nature continues to hit Houston like it has.
Right. Hey, thank you. Yeah, thank you. That was a good question, Sean. I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, so I have one last question for you.
Sure.
What's the best book you've read lately?
I have been YouTube streaming a
me
priest, a sermon. Father Anthony Mesa is in Washington, D.C., and my wife turned me on to him because he's like a young pastor with a bunch of energy, and I've been streaming him on my shorter car rides to the office, and it's been really good for me.
I love that.
So I can't read a book, but I can stream stuff.
Yeah, I've been doing that too. I've been listening to Stephen Furtick, who I think is in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. He's also a young pastor, and I like his tenacity. But I have to check him out. That's great.
I'll send you a link.
Thank you. So, Mark, tell everybody what's the best way to get a hold of you if they have questions, or maybe looking to switch, insurance companies. I know a lot of people right now are looking to try to save money. So, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. They could either comment on this, private message me, or visit our website, rafailinsurance.com. And it sounds like I see my contact info on the bottom there. Yeah. Whatever way you want to communicate is the way I want to communicate. And I don't mind just giving friendly advice and nothing more, really. I'm happy to help anytime. Yes,
and y'all, he's fantastic. Mark Rafail. Oh my gosh, why am I doing this? Ever since
Rafail.
I know Rafail. I know it's Rafail, and
somebody put it in your ear.
Someone put it in my head, and it's like confused me ever since. And I'm so sorry, but he is the number one farmers insurance agent in Houston for business, workers' comp.
So
name all them things. Flood, right?
So out of 65 local agencies, not, out of the state, out of the whole, last year we were ranked number one for business insurance, number one for flood insurance, number one for workers' comp insurance, number one for life insurance, and number one for umbrella insurance. So all the products I mentioned that were important that you don't have to have, were 4 out of 5. You know, the reason I think we were among the top is because a lot of agents, they don't want to talk about it. It's, hey, you're closing on a house, you got to get the cheapest, thing to get in the door, and then you're going on Geico or Progressive and trying to figure it out. Or you're dealing with an office that maybe the staff is just trying to get the lowest rate. Not all agents are like that, of course, but it could happen. So we're not, and if it wasn't for our team, I'd be nothing. Really, Elaine, Megan, Nancy, my wife Sylvia, Donna, all great.
Oh, I love it. I love Elaine, right? Like, she's just sweet.
Oh, yeah.
Megan has been so sweet. Everyone, I mean, everyone has been amazing and very sweet. Nancy has been there a long time too.
Yeah, I hired her on a credit card my first year. Been with us 10 years now.
That's so funny, but that says a lot. You've had a lot of people, and we have also, y'all, he graduated from A&M. So he and I, when we met, we started to realize, because of Facebook, we had several mutual friends, which has been kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Yeah, so small world. It's always a small world, right? But
you sold my friends' houses.
I did. And we started to realize, I'm like, wait, call them, call Mark for insurance. And I'm like, oh, I went to college with Mark, or I went to high school with Mark. Because you grew up in, what, was it Cypress?
I did grow up in the West Houston area, the Bear Creek, Copperfield, North Katy area. Born and raised here.
That's right. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark. Again, I really can't thank you enough. You are amazing. And, y'all have got to go check him out, ask questions. Mark is very responsive, and he's there for you. So I appreciate everything. Again, I really can't thank you enough. Y'all go and, visit Mark on his website. All of his information is right here on the screen, or, like his, Facebook business page at Rafail Insurance Agency. He'll get a lot of information there. And I do have to say, and if any of you know any small businesses, or business owners in the area that could benefit from free advertisement by, sharing, their brand and teaching us their brand and getting maximum exposure, send them my way. Or if you are the business owner, call me, reach out to me. Or if you know Mark, reach out to Mark. Hey, we're here for you. We want to get you as much exposure as possible. Mark, I hope we get you a ton of exposure, and because I know that you'll pay it forward. And, anything else that you can add to that, Mark?
Jen, you just knocked it out of the park. You said everything. So I should be thanking you for taking the initiative, not only to bring me on, but other people and supporting them. So thank you again for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, y'all stay tuned, because today is Friday. I don't even know what day it is anymore. But Monday, I'll have, Tracy with Mainstream Boutique, who is going to be on here, and she's got this fabulous boutique right here in Pearland. And she's also, a really neat lady to, talk to. I've had a great conversation with her. And, I like her. She's the same, like-minded, person as far as, business sense goes. So I love meeting new people, and she's going to show us some products, because Mother's Day is right around the corner. So
awesome. Well, I will stay
Monday,
tuned.
and thank you again, Mark. Until next time, y'all stay healthy, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Y'all be safe.